to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners, as well as listeners on the Real Radio and anybody else that hears this on YouTube, etc. My name is Jerome, and I am the Sane Environmentalist. Today is Thursday, the 7th of February, 2018. And today I wanted to talk about, I've had a very interesting week, and I want to talk about some of the things that have occurred to me, as well as I want to give a shout out to a YouTuber. This guy is a very smart person. His name is Bright Insight, and he's on YouTube. His name is Jimmy, but his channel name is Bright Insight. INSIGHT. Excuse me. But he is very smart and evidence-based. All this stuff is evidence-based, and I can appreciate that. And I saw a couple shows, and it kind of got my attention where he says, look at the size of these blocks of stone that were lifted and placed on this foundation of this building. And tell me how you could do that. How would you be able to do that? Even by today's standards, how do you lift a 250-ton block of stone? You know? And this happened, 5,000 years ago? Yet somehow they're only counting back about 3,000 years. Before that, there's really no civilization, so to speak of, I guess you could say. You know, civilization pretty much occurred right about, I would say, 3,000 years ago, according to most historians. However, they are finding structures, and some of the structures have these monolithically large stone blocks 2,000 years older than that. So there's evidence on our planet of people 5,000 years ago lifting up 200-ton stone boulders in the desert and coring them and cutting them precisely, etc. There's evidence of that. So, you know, with that in mind, I have to go, well, what's the real story then? You know, I was talking to an individual, and they kind of had a wide field of view on things in some ways. But basically, he was saying that it was demons, and the earth is inhabited by demons, and it's the end times, and we're all waiting for Jesus. And when Jesus gets here, he's going to take us all up, and if you're saved, and then leave the other people and the demons behind. So that's kind of crazy thoughts right there, but. And he said, and that's what it is, and it's the demons. And I got to thinking about that whole concept of what demons. And the demons are things of our own creation. We as a species create our own demons, and we create our own religions, really. And furthermore, are we as humans really even a natural part of this ecosystem that has evolved? There have been several upright Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and Neanderthals, but they all went extinct. And about 80,000 years ago, poof, all of a sudden, you had Homo sapiens. It just popped out of nowhere. Everything else went extinct, and then we popped out of nowhere about 80,000 years ago and proceeded from that point on to inhabit and control the entire surface of the planet. Very quickly, if you think about it in terms of millions of years, between 5 million years and 3 million years ago, you went from Australopithecus to it's just basically from one form of an ape to another form of an ape, to Homo habilis, which was still very ape-like, and Homo erectus, which was still very ape-like. And it took 1 million years to get from there to Neanderthal. So, or 900,000 years to get from there to Neanderthal. So, we haven't been around that long, and it's kind of a mystery. Don't you think? I mean, really think about it. It's kind of a mystery. Our whole presence, our whole humanity itself will clearly and evidently admit that, yeah, there's a difference between natural and man-made. Right? Is it a natural product or is it a man-made product? There should be no such thing on this planet. There's no other species on the planet that says, well, there's a natural and then a horse done or something. A horse doesn't even think on that level. There's nothing else. Man, for whatever reason, has disconnected himself from whatever is natural on a fundamental level. Probably because of our additional needs. We have additional needs over every other creature that exists on this planetary plane with us. We have needs for clothing, we have needs for shelter, we have needs for energy to produce heat, to heat water so we can keep clean, and to cook food so we don't get sick from the bacteria which exist in the natural world, and which, for whatever reason, every other species on the planet seems to be able to go to a water hole and get a drink. But if a human goes to a water hole and gets a drink, we die of diphtheria or some other microtoxin in the environment that every other species is immune to. Haven't you ever watched a dog or a cat drink out of a bowl of murky water and think, oh my God, I would get so sick if I drank that? And they're just fine. Why is that? What sets us apart? Why are we so different? Think about it. That's a microbiological level that we're just not compatible with. As a species on this planet, if we had no water for purification facilities at all, and no heat, and no use of fire or other energy, we would basically be wearing hunters-gatherers wearing skins. That's what we would be doing. But we evolved away from that very quickly. And if you look at it geologically, from the earliest ancestors, they say, of humanity, the earliest bipedal ape-like creatures were 5 million years old. You know, it was when the first of us appeared. So, I think, and Jimmy at Bright Insight has a really good video on YouTube. I got to give the video a shout out. It's called Alien Hybrid Theory. Ever get the feeling we, the humans, are the aliens? And it perfectly summarizes exactly what I've been thinking for many years, which is that at some point in our history, there was, I don't know what the reason was. It could have been an experiment to see what would happen if, some advanced alien race were to want to genetically create something. Just see what happens. Try to terraform. How could we terraform? Well, we need to create an intelligent species which will terraform the place for us. That's the easiest way to do it. And then come back in 10,000 years and see how they did. We could be that. God only knows. And there's God. And why do we need God? Why do we need God? Why, again, are we different from every other species on this planet? And we need religion. We need to go to a place other than this in order to find peace or serenity for our quote-unquote souls. Why is that? Why does every other living being on the planet go out of this world, not even thinking about that they could go out of this world? They just do. It's not a big issue. There doesn't need to be a God. There doesn't need to be Jesus or Allah or Satan or any of that, because it is what it is. You live your existence. And this is home. For us, it's like, no, finally, do I get to go home? Home? How many times have you heard a religious person say, God, I can't wait to go home to Jesus? And I'm not dissing religious people at all. I'm just saying that that religion is just something that we had to come up with in order to make any sense of the craziness of it all. That's what religion's purpose is. The purpose is to give you input from a higher, quote-unquote, power, outside source, something that isn't of this earth. Okay, that's the whole point of religion, is that you're dealing with something that isn't of this earth. Something outside of this earth is the only thing that can give you any sort of a sense of peace or sense of understanding of it all. Is you have to look out from the earth. So that is, and I'm sorry this furnace came on. I wish I had a breaker. There we go. Good. And so that it raises questions about where we came from and how deep is the connection that we are not even acknowledging. We don't even acknowledge that there could be a connection. There could be a genetic predisposition built into the 90% of our DNA that, I forget what they call it, junk DNA or extra, the coding they don't get, they don't understand what it could be for, within our DNA. And then maybe DNA is the molecule of life, as it were. Maybe DNA is the the thing that links all different life in the universe together. Perhaps. Maybe it's that. It's the code of life. DNA is the code of life. It's in a chemical form, but it is the code of life. And if we have the same DNA as some other, I could see humans doing that. But for the purposes of breeding a race of soldiers or some crap like that. I mean, think Star Wars. We found this primitive group on this planet. They're bipedal. It looks like they'll be extinct because they're not very efficient like everything else, and they're losing their hair. They're probably on the way out. Probably humanity was on the way out on this planet, okay? Unless we had a way to better equip ourselves, because it's like, on one hand, we got this weak-ass body, very fragile, okay? But on the other hand, we had this big, beautiful brain. So we kind of have this, even the older humans, the Neanderthals that went extinct, still had that. They had this fragility. At the same time, they had an intelligence. It's kind of a catch-22, I think. How you combine fragility and intelligence together. How they seem to go hand in hand for whatever reason. So basically, we got salvaged. I think they just tweaked our DNA just enough to where we all of a sudden learned how to, and maybe gave us supplies and materials and education and how to create buildings to live in and weapons to kill animals remotely with, and other tools that we could use. And they may be the ones that actually built some of these structures, which are, Great Pyramid of Giza. Just as one example, okay? In the middle of the desert, they put up this building. North, south, east, west, perfect orientation of the lines, of the lines of magnetic. The Great Pyramid of Giza is actually oriented magnetically north-south. Or no, true north-south, not magnetically north-south. So they did it. They did that. And then they produced these blocks, and they quarried them, and they brought them in, and they laid them. And all the experts are like, well, they used logs. They rolled them on logs. It's like, okay. Problem one, you're in the middle of the desert. So you got to go hundreds of miles to get logs, and you bring the logs, right? And we're talking palm logs, because that's the only kind of logs. It wouldn't be maple or oak. It would be palm. And so you put a palm log on the ground and put a 300-ton boulder on it and roll it for 10 feet, and it's now sawdust. I don't care how many palm logs, or they'll sink into the ground. That wouldn't work. It would not work. I can guarantee you that. You would need some sort of a lifting technology with steel, minimally steel bearings on it, to be able to roll something that massive. And we're talking 200-ton blocks of granite that have been carved and sent across 25 miles of desert. How are you going to roll logs across sand as well? It makes absolutely zero sense to me. And why we're being fed that, I don't understand. Okay. But, when you think about it, that's okay too. It is. So let's say that, we are infected or changed or somehow outsidedly manipulated. Well, that's okay too. It really is. Because we are what we are. We have our society. We have our organization. We have our deal. We are a thing. And good for us. We certainly don't mind it. And we have as much of a right to exist as every other thing that has life in the universe. So it's not like we're bad or a mistake. We're perhaps an experiment or an error, you know. So, however, because of our inadequacies, okay, because of the fact that we are an error, that we are somehow non-conformist to the rest of the system, we have inadequacies that have to be compensated for because of that. Otherwise, we would have gone extinct. Imagine how long man would last without electricity. Just without electricity. If there were no electricity anywhere, in any form, shape, or type, our entire worlds would collapse around us. You couldn't even start your car. Cars depend on electricity to run. You couldn't do anything. All industry would stop. All light, all heat, everything. Every bit of refrigeration, every bit of water purification, everything. Okay, how long do you think it would be before you saw massive, massive, massive die-off of human beings off this planet? A die-off probably to the point where they would become imbalanced again with the rest of the system, but for electricity. Think how important electricity really is in our lives and what we would do without it. You know, and people would say, well, you could use natural gas, generate with that, and this and that. And that's not the same thing as electricity. Electricity is the key that gave us the difference, the advantage, and the ability to move forward through every other species on this planet and become number one in a pretty short order. You know, electricity has converted, if you will, this planet. Because without it, the basic things that we take for granted, like running any kind of machinery, okay? You know, even a fancy gas thing uses some electricity to stimulate it to turn on or off or light it or something. There's just, it's part of the basis of our whole equation. Electricity is. So we need it. We have to have it. We have to have this outside energy. Without it, we perish. I guess that's the point I'm making here. And this would explain the fact that given that electricity is, even though it is a natural thing, okay, the movement of electrons through a material is a natural phenomenon. However, electricity is not natural. Electricity is the forced movement of electrons through a material for the purpose of usage of those said electrons to create magnetic fields and move other things and create what we know as society. So without that, we are nothing, you know, and so we need it, and so we'll do whatever it takes to get it. And this kind of explains a lot of the ecological damage that is being done by humans to the planet. Without electricity, none of that would occur. You know, you'd have no nuclear plants. You'd have no air pollution because you'd have no cars running. You wouldn't be burning fossil fuels in a car without a spark. That's for sure. You know, you would have a lower population because people would have to burn wood. Because you couldn't mine coal. I mean, you could hand dig, perhaps, you know, and blow holes and stuff with dynamite, but it would be very labor intensive and it really wouldn't be worth it. And you couldn't do enough of it to really impact the environment on a global scale. Okay. But you see, electricity allows you to have other machines, and everything that creates a waste stream is electrically powered. Think about it. And without electricity, it couldn't exist. Without electricity, you could not enrich uranium. It just wouldn't be possible. You know? And without electricity, you couldn't run a car, you couldn't cook food really very well. You could burn wood. There you go. See, and now all of a sudden we're going to burn wood. All right. Good for you. Burn wood. But sooner or later, you're going to burn up all the wood. And then all of a sudden there's not going to be enough fuel. You're not going to be able to cook. Everybody's going to get sick and die. And there again, nature remains balanced and takes back, if you will, the environment from the offending predators of that said environment. You know, that's the whole thing with nature, you know, and the whole thing, other things that destroy nature is that nature gets it in the end. So, you know, all this kind of explains how we just have to do damage to the environment in order to sustain ourselves. We have to. We have no choice. And there are so many of us, and now with our medicine, we're able to stay alive a lot longer and lose way fewer babies in the process. So we are increasing in number. And we're digging under the ground more and more and more under the skin of the apple, if you will, for all of our energy needs, primarily, and material needs. You know, we are digging under the skin of the apple. If you think of the earth as an apple, and the biosphere as the skin of the apple, and below the biosphere is dirt, and below that is the resources below the top layer of dirt. But more and more, and without fail, and if without it, we would also perish. If we didn't mine coal and natural gas and oil, you know, we couldn't make electricity. See, there you go. See, electricity is the key. I think people overestimate or underestimate how important electricity is to the fact that we have branched off evolutionarily from every other species on the planet. You know, and as a result, we are absolutely going to do damage to our ecosystem. It's not avoidable. It's not, you can't do it green. You can't. There's just too many humans. There's too many. You know, to build enough solar panels to cover every house in America would entail a huge, giant waste stream. You know, for instance, and you need a massive amount of electricity to make it happen, to grow the ingots of silicon to create the panels with. You know, and so no matter how you look at it, even if it's considered quote unquote green energy, it really isn't if it's not part of the Earth's natural energy flow. You know, and in lower numbers, humans are fine. We're fine with that. You know, if you think go back in time before we started heating the atmosphere, when, you know, there was the villages here and there, but you would go miles and miles without seeing a person. Through North America even. Miles and miles without even seeing a person, a single person, like 20, 30 miles. You'd be the only one for 20 or 30 miles in every direction, or more. You know, you could have a campfire and shoot a deer and be fine with it, you know. And then there was also a good chance that something was going to get you too. You know, so the Earth was kind of equalizing at that point. But as soon as you got to town, and now there's 500 of the humans in one spot. Okay, 500 men in one place. And now all of a sudden, well, okay, we need an outhouse or something. And so we start creating little holes with our filthy waste in them, which is different from every other creature's waste. Because we eat weird stuff. You know, and we drink alcohol and all that. But we just are we are not in any way a real part of this ecosystem that we are inhabiting. And I wish we could figure that out. I wish we could figure that out in our minds, in our hearts, that we are a part of it. And so we have to really, if we want to, we have to self-impose limitations on our behavior, on our reproduction. We need to understand per human unit the amount of damage that we're doing to the environment just by our very existence. And it's not like we're at fault. It's not like we're bad. But it is what it is, all the same. You know, just by nature of being a human being on this planet, if you're listening to my voice right now, you are part of the problem. I don't care what you do that's green. Green, if you're doing something that's green, then that's just further acknowledging your alienness. You know, I like to live green. You know, well, as opposed to what, living like men, and then it would be like the Blade Runner, huh? You know, that's where we're headed. You know, we're heading to the Blade Runner. Remember that movie? Remember the grandeur and beauty of the cities, flying through them? You know, big pyramid shaped with clouds, and it was just alien-ish. You know, and then you get down and it's constantly raining, and it's just filthy. We've made it filthy. And who is us? Us is just all the various humans that evolved and lived in that area and decided to settle down there. You know, and as a result, well, that's what you get. And I think that in some ways, the Blade Runner really sums up what we're looking forward to in society. You know, we're looking forward to a time when, unless you go out in the country, you're not going to see a blue sky. It's always going to be hazy and overcast. If you're in Los Angeles or New York or London or Tokyo, if Tokyo even is inhabitable, you know, Tokyo is on its own thing. It will be going away quicker because of yet more man-made disaster. You know, so our societies create the eco damage, and despite seeking solutions, it gets worse and worse and worse. And it would make some activists like myself feel like we're just running into a brick wall. You know, are we really making any difference? And I gotta say, I don't know. I'm only doing this because this is what I do. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to communicate this with other people if they want to listen. If they don't want to listen, if they think I'm crazy, then that's fine too. But everything that I'm going to say is going to be verifiable, I guess you could say. You know, all these things that I refer to, all these differences that I refer to, the missing link, you know, in human evolution that I'm referring to, that is there. You know, it's just not, it's just, there's a reason for it. You know, there's a reason that we branched off from every other species. We really should have gone extinct. Okay. I hate to say it, people, but we are not well suited for this environment. We should have gone extinct, but we didn't because we're clever, and I think we had outside help genetically that made us more clever quickly enough to where we got over going extinct because of our in retinue of our intelligence. We avoided extinction. Okay. But remember, and don't forget, that the forces, outside forces, the quote-unquote natural forces in the universe are still there. And they're actually worse than they used to be now, thanks to us. So it won't take much. It really would not take much to take us back to zero. You know, it really wouldn't. You know, if an asteroid hit right now, we would go back to zero very quickly. And all of us and we would just, let's put it this way, if an asteroid hits the planet, humans are not going to climb out of the wreckage. All right. Humans are all going to die. We'll be one of the first species to really truly go. You know, probably it'll be species of fish or lizards or little mice or something that went down underneath the ground or hid, you know, and so it's probably the reptiles that take it back over again more than anything. You know, many mammals wouldn't make it through. And humans, which are mammalian in reproduction at least, certainly would have a hard time in the loss of all infrastructure and order. You know, you may think, oh, I got my gun and whatnot, but give it 5 years with no infrastructure, no order. Now what? Now all the bullets are gone. Nobody's making new gunpowder. If you're lucky enough to get gunpowder, it's crappy homemade stuff. It's not the real McCoy. You know, and then all of a sudden now we're back to bows and arrows and swords and you know, we can quickly evolve backwards. And if there's no resources and nobody can grow food, then we will all die off within a couple years. We could take it from humans are destroying the planet to humans are gone within a couple of years. You know, with an asteroid impact, for instance, and just cloud the skies over, all the crops die. We'd have a couple of years of backup, and then people would start to die off on a massive scale. You know, and we could get below the point where we aren't able to bounce back without technology. So keep that in mind, folks. Keep in mind that it is what it is, I guess. And I don't know that there is a solution. You know, my next point is finding solutions. So so the truth is that we as a species aren't evolved to be on this planet. We really don't seem to be. It just doesn't logically make sense the way every other species does. That's the truth. And the problem is, of course, ecological damage that we're doing to the planet as a result of not being part of it. And acknowledging that. You know, and I think as a species, we do need to acknowledge that. Acknowledge how as soon as a human is born, it's taught the big truth, the big kahuna is outside of the earth. It's in heaven above. It's not on earth. You know, that you're going somewhere and Jesus is going to, quote unquote, come down and get you and take you away from this place. As if this place isn't home. As if this place is a breeding ground for demons. For instance. Just very strange, very strange. So, there is no solution. The only solution is allowing things to flow, I guess. That's the only solution I can think of, and it kind of calls my whole purpose into question. You know, if you think of it like that, it's like, well, what are you doing then? And if there isn't a solution, Jerome, then what are you doing? Or are you jabbering away right at this very moment on the radio about things that have no solution to them? You know, about things that people don't even care about. A lot of people don't even care about, you know? And I guess because I don't know why, but I'm not going to stop. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe I do it because of my ego. And it's just a purely human ego motivated deal. I would like to think not. But it is what it is, you know. I will continue to be the sane environmentalist. I will continue to point out to humans exactly how we are destroying our environment. But in a sane, rational way. that people can absorb. And I guess that's the whole point of the Sane Environmentalist, is to create a sane place, a place where, and this other guy that I was talking about earlier, Jimmy, also has a very sane way about him. He's looking at facts and figures and doing research and looking this stuff up and figuring it out and then talking about it, and that creates sanity because people can learn, but if you're a human, it's just so obvious, at least to me, that we are from outside of this sphere, this biosphere that we're in, that we may be connected to this biosphere, but only in so much as that we are bound here by gravity. If we could leave this planet, I'm sure many humans would leave it and go exploring, and we're working hard on that. When people are going to be able to start going to the moon and Mars and other places, that'll be a big boon to humanity. And it will eventually get to the point, as we predict in our science fiction, where we're going faster than the speed of light across the cosmos to other quadrants of the galaxy. And maybe even beyond this galaxy to the next galaxy. Things that we couldn't even imagine today. It's like we have so much gumption that we're incompatible with the Earth, for sure. And, well, what are we compatible with then? So if you were to create a human utopia, what would that be? What would the human utopia be? Would it be a clean, comfortable interior with lots of glass so you can look out and you can investigate and see, and the ability to get information whenever you want, have advanced health care that keeps you from getting sick and ill and sore, and unlimited information anytime you wanted it? Think of what we value as humans. Think of the things that we value. We value information. We value data. We pay money. We go to work and wear our lives out to pay for data on our phones, on our computers, our internet connection. That's data. That's what we're paying for. We're paying for that which is what we're compatible with. Okay. So, I guess that in some ways that's kind of a hopeless thing. I mean, when you really think about it, it kind of makes you feel like, well, what's the point then? What's the point of being an environmentalist? What's the point of fighting against these large megalithic corporations which are destroying our environment? The nuclear industry is destroying the environment. And now the nuclear industry is getting reborn again under our new president. And it's like plutonium lasts a long time. You shouldn't need to make new triggers. I couldn't believe that they'd throw away good plutonium. I mean, but still you're going to have to move it around and melt it back down, and it's just messy. Plutonium is messy. It gets all over the place. The whole, Hanford's a good example. The plutonium refinishing plant out there, there's plutonium dust everywhere. One thing a lot of people don't understand about plutonium is it's hard. It's super, super hard. You have to damn near have a diamond to be able to cut through plutonium. And it's unstable. And if you get too much of it in one place, boom, it just blows up. Just too much in one place, well, oops, boom. So that's that, I don't know, folks. I'm feeling kind of lost and a little disillusioned by my own conversation today. I hate to say it, but it's true. But I guess that all I can do is a little bit I can do, and that'll make me feel good, and that'll satisfy my selfish needs to say, see, I did something at least. If we're really looking at it realistically, you know, would I personally, as a human, rather not have the internet and live in the woods and not have any of that? No. And maybe a building with a couple other people in it and animals and, you know, hunt for my food and not have to, you know, you got to have some sort of fuel. So, but you can harvest wax. There are things you can do for fuel and for light, but not a whole lot of us. You know, and that's the thing about humans is we breed like ticks. We're kind of viral in the way we reproduce. You know, and each one of us, though we start out small, do end up using a lot of resources. You know, animals don't use that much in the way of resources. People do. We really do. So, basically, that's my talk about that, you know, and about humans and our point and our purpose in this universe and what are we going to do. I think that we'll probably end up making the ecosystem on Earth just about incompatible with ourselves because now we're manipulating it, trying to make it better, you know, by spraying the skies and trying to control the weather and at the same time destroying the ozone layer, you know, and so that when temperatures do drop and the skies do clear and the sun does come out, it'll burn everything and destroy many different species. Won't do well with no ozone layer, you know, and especially plants, especially food plants, probably it would turn out, you know. It's amazing how a lot of the things that we do just do destruction directly to the life form. You know, like radiation goes straight to the human thyroid gland. Boom. Straight there, you know. Straight to the bones. Right to the DNA. You know, and lives right at the heart of our heart. You know, the coding that makes us what we are. You know, a lot of our creations are harmful to us, and it's almost as if we're like not like children given an important big tool that don't understand they understand basically how to use the tool, but don't really understand the ramifications of the use of the tool. And since it's pretty, we try to use it as much as we can. And that's kind of how I feel about us humans. Like, we're just kind of infantile, silly children. We're constantly looking outside. And maybe we are star children. You know, maybe someday giant starships will show up in the skies and it'll be like, all right, you want to come to Utopia now? You know, it turns out the Earth is flat. They just project an illusion around it, so we think it's round. Oh, Lordy. That's just craziness. You know, I'll never go for that. So now we're in the last 8 minutes, folks. And, you know, I want to give a few shouts out to the YouTube community for some of the stuff that they do. For some of the YouTubers who I really appreciate, you know, I really appreciate Bright Insight is really good. As well, I like Cabin Talk, her name is, and she's another environmentalist and somewhat a political girl, but pretty much just an environmentalist. But of course, UCY.TV is a big one for me. And then there's this guy who lives in Japan. Calls himself Kiana Yoru. And he walks around with the Geiger counters in Japan and takes measurements. And I'm looking at the last one day ago, I'm looking at 65 millisieverts per hour. Let me see if I can, but it's all in Japanese, and he disables comments. Wow. So they're still getting 65 millisieverts an hour, no microsieverts an hour in parts of Japan at ground level. So if you think about that, that is a lot of people are like, well, that's way below the recommended annual dose. And it's like, well, yeah, but keep in mind that it's cumulative, and that doesn't really mean much because there's also lots of particles. If you're getting radiation levels that high, that means there's a certain number of particles in that soil area that are radioactive, and those particles get airborne and inhaled and eaten by kids. They get on their shoes, they get on their hands. Animals eat them. A lot of their animals in Japan are dying off. A lot of the house animals that they've had for years are dying off now. They're all of a sudden getting cancer and dying, and the ones that were left behind, and the new ones, because the soil is contaminated. It's contaminated with really nasty stuff that's going to be nasty for a long time to come. And that's our fault. We did it. Oops. And the contamination will even out, because that's the nature also of radioactive contamination, is it kind of evens out like heat would, or you get a hot spot and then it just kind of goes out from there and kind of disperses a little bit. And so already Tokyo, Japan is a dangerous place to raise children and have babies. I'd say in another 10, 15 years, because they'll still be trying to get that under control in 10 years. They will. Watch. The whole of that part of Japan is going to be totally infected with deep-seated radioactive poisoning. Cesium, strontium, radioactive everything all through there. And they're continuing to pump water through the reactors, pumping it out of the tunnels that are at sea level and into tanks, because that's where it's all collecting, is in those tunnels. And so they pump the tunnels out and it goes into the tanks. And probably they run it through the reactor a couple times before it just gets too radioactive for humans to be around. Then they got to put it in tanks. So the tanks are just on a hill, and they're going to try to figure out how to filter them. But they're not. You can't filter that stuff out. It's just insidious. It's hideous. It's over the edge. It's over the edge. It's what occurs when a species on a planet is totally out of sync with the rest of the natural system on that planet. It's not humans that are killing the environment. It's the waste products that humans create that is killing the environment. Just like a virus. We're kind of just like a virus. If you think about how our behavior is globally, and if you look at the Earth as an organism, you could look at us and go, well, we are just a nasty, filthy virus. We cause all kinds of problems. We cause fever, we cause irritation, we cause skin loss and hair loss and blindness, deafness, but we're going to keep reproducing because we are what we are, and we're not going to stop because you told us to. And the only thing that will take us out is either our own selves becoming overwhelmed finally, or the Earth throwing a wicked fever. But it's going to have to be pretty wicked to put us down. because we do have some toughness, but once you get us over the edge, we'll go quickly. Don't think we won't. Don't think not have New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Detroit, Philadelphia, Miami, Dallas, Houston, all deserted, just crumbling to the ground. Been there for several hundred years, and there's no machines left. All the metal's rusted away. There's some aluminum laying around, bunch of plastic, but not much more. Within 1,000 years, it'll all be buried, and it would be a different place than it is today, because our terraforming activity would cease, and it would go back to what the Earth would naturally be. And that's so sad. That is so sad to have to think that way, to have to acknowledge that. It's so sad to me. I'm heartbroken by that, the fact of it. I personally love the planet that we live on and the environment that we are in. But I'm no less responsible than anybody else for my activities. I use electricity. I'm using it right now. I am in the middle of the day sitting next to a light bulb that's turned on. I just turned it off. And it's middle of the day. So I'm no different. Maybe I'm a little teeny bit less destructive because I ride a bicycle instead of drive a car, but not a whole lot. Really not a whole lot. And so there's really nothing we can do, so why should we do anything, huh? Well, I think we should do something because it's the right thing to do. And if there ever were a true religious calling on this planet, it would be the religion of maintaining the ecosystem, our biosphere, our home, our house, as if it were sacred, because it is sacred. And I guess we need to try to get the hell out of here, find another place, get home, wherever that is. There's probably places that are in our DNA that we know about, our quote-unquote junk DNA, that just are waiting for the right stimulus to, manifest. And hopefully this planet makes it through us. I really hope it does. I don't have much hope, but I do hope, and I guess that's the reason that I continue to try to educate people and try to move my message forward, which is be aware of your own responsibilities and be aware of your own damage that you're doing, and try to minimize that if you can, and realize that nobody's perfect. But and don't keep your mouth shut no matter what. Talk. People need you to communicate with them. So thank you. My name is Jerome. I am the Sane Environmentalist, and hopefully we are about to get a timeout on this call. I have to see what happens here. Yep, I'm still connected. I hope that this all worked. So thank you very, very much, folks. And you have a good day. In that 1 minute. I never can know. Some people say 9:58. Is it 9:58:30? I don't have a second hand here. That's crazy.
See you tomorrow, everybody.